Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. I get a response. Things are good. The coffee's working. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend the day with us. We really, really appreciate it. It's interesting. I don't know if you just noticed the music. The guys put some sort of 1970s jazz funk on, which obviously was a reference to my age, not to my dance ability. So yes, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. It's great to have you here. My name's Richard Robinson. I'm going to be your host for today. So I heard some groans in the background. I promise not to keep using my same old jokes. I've basically spent most of my career immersed in B2B. And it's something I feel incredibly passionate about. And I feel really privileged today to have so many of you in the room with whom I can get to know and I can learn from as well. And I think today is very much about that learning. It's about that sharing. It's about that taking the time to network with people around the room and really understand what's happening in the market and what you can take away for your business. So as your host today, I actually feel that as being a host, you have quite a lot of power. I've got the power to decide when we break for coffee. I've got the power to decide when I can allow you to go to the loo. I've got the power to decide when the speaker should stop speaking. So there's a lot of power involved in this. But also, as the great philosopher himself said, Spider-Man said, with great power comes great responsibility. And my responsibility today is to you, is to make sure that you're getting the most out of today, that you're taking the key learnings that you can bring back into your business and really help you transform what you're doing. Obviously, responsibility includes many things, and the most exciting one is the health and safety, obviously. So just to let you know, reassure you, there are no fire alarms planned today. So if you hear one, run. No, I don't mean run. If you hear one, follow the exit signs. There's 2 at the back and 2 either side. Yes, I am doing my air hostess maneuvers here. Make your way to the stairs, calmly and carefully to the stairs, which can be found in the foyer to the left and right of the lifts. So as I said, no fire alarm planned. If there is one, make your way that way. Or if you're quick enough, you can follow me. The second thing is mobile devices. I love my mobile phone. I love my mobile phone so much. I've got 2 of them. OK, it's a little bit greedy, but I do love my mobile phone. We've all got phones on us today. If I can just ask you to show a little courtesy to the speakers and just turn them to silent, that would be great. You don't need to turn them off, because we really want you to be using things. But if you can, just turn them down, that would be fantastic. So related to that, social media. We love social media. Hands up that love social media. OK, there's some skeptics in the room. OK, I know some of you love social media, but you really love Google+. So we've got a hashtag. I told you my jokes don't change. We've got a hashtag somewhere. Hashtag is B2B Google. Please use that. There were lots of people that wanted to come today that we wouldn't let in. So if you can share your content that you're picking up today with the wider world, they'll be very appreciative of that. We'll also be checking the posts as they go out throughout the day as real-time feedback for us, and so that we can really pick up on the points that you're raising, use those as ways of asking questions for the speakers as well. The final thing is around breaks. So we've got a really packed agenda, lots of amazing speakers. There's plenty of time for breaks. We've got regularly scheduled breaks for teas and coffees and drinks, which will be served here. For loo breaks, the loos are again out into the foyer and turn left or right, and you can find those. There's plenty of opportunity for that, and please take the opportunity during the breaks to network with people. So let's start that off, to network with people. Can I all ask you just to stand up, please? And as a start, as we mean to go on, to get to meet new people, can you just turn to the people on your left and right and introduce yourself? So Guy, how are you? It's lovely to see you. You well? Fantastic. Very keen. Front seat. I'm enjoying that. That's brilliant. Yeah. Sit in the front. That's brilliant. Fantastic. Lovely to see you. Hi, I'm Richard.
I am Danny from your office.
Oh, right. Fantastic. Great to see you. Oh, brilliant. Oh, fantastic. Okay. Oh, fantastic. Brilliant. Well, I hope you find it a good session. Okay. Okay, thank you all very much. Was that good? Did you meet people you didn't know before? Yeah, fantastic. I met Maria, who's told me she started following me on social media this morning. I then let her down gently to tell her not to do that because I don't really tweet very much, or nothing of much content anyway. So what are we here to do today? Why have we invited so many of you here? Well, it's because we think we're at an amazing time in the market. We're at a place in the market that is unique. We see that technology is transforming the way that we as individuals, as consumers and businesses are operating, the way that we're engaging with each other, the way we're engaging with brands. But as consumers and individuals and customers, we're taking that experience and actually driving more from it. We want technology to do more for us. And the big impact of that is what's happening with us. As marketeers, as businesses, how are we engaging with our audience? It is completely changing. But it means we're at a spot in the market where there's a real opportunity to innovate. There's an opportunity to make giant leaps forward in transforming the way that we're communicating with our customers and our prospects. And that is what today is about. It's about igniting those opportunities. It's about seeing how we can ignite creativity, ignite technology, ignite customer data to transform our business. And today we're going to give you some of the building blocks, some of the elements that help you do that. We're going to be hopefully providing you with insight on what is the fuel to help you do that. What is the oxygen that you need to really get that to come to life? And what is the spark? What is the ignition that will really, really drive transformation across your business? Now, my belief is that marketeers are in a unique position to take creativity, to take technology, to take customer insight, and actually drive innovation across our business. So today we've got a great lineup of speakers that will be talking about igniting creativity, igniting our customers, igniting our brands, and igniting and transforming our business. So a couple of things that I want, one thing I really want from you, or one big ask, is that we're going to be talking about some stuff that's quite controversial. And in some cases, we're going to be talking about things that are actually counterintuitive. So I need you to be open-minded. I need you to put your day-to-day thinking to one side. Come and think expansively. Be willing to take on new ideas. Be willing to actually challenge each other and ourselves about those ideas to come on that journey. So are you up for this? Are you up for this journey today? Yes. Okay, this side was slightly more up for it than this side. Are we up for it this time today? Yeah? Brilliant, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for coming on this journey with us. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to introduce our first speaker. I'd like to introduce Kevin Mathers, who's UK Sales Director here for Google. And Kevin has spent the last 20 years or more advising and building and transforming businesses. He's got a real passion for doing this, for really helping companies change the way that they look at things and change the way that they do business. I'm really looking forward to this presentation because I know it's going to be really insightful. There's going to be some amazing insights that we can take away from this. And I know that Kevin has more energy than a Duracell bunny. So it's going to be fantastic. So without further ado, may I welcome Kevin to the stage.
Hello, hello. That's a better introduction than last week. I was introduced as Google's very own Boris Johnson, which I found relatively terrifying. So welcome, crowded house, great. Music link ages me slightly, but in this audience, it looks like it doesn't age me as much as some of our other audiences. So it's great to be in a crowd looking relatively similar to me. So today, a day to talk about marketing and how we can help you, how Google can help your businesses. And I've got one simple thing I'm thinking about this year, the power of data. You know, we've been talking about this. Hands up, who's had a consultant talk to them about big data in the last 10 years? Oh, sorry, half of you are in the room. I forgot that. Yes, big data. Data is useful. Some businesses are built purely on data. So I see Titus sat here. Some people, we know this. Businesses do this really well and explode in a way that previous physical assets couldn't allow them to. So who's used the Uber car in the last month? Okay, sort of half. If you're not using it, it's unbelievable. Little sales pitch. Use of data, taking data sets and making use of them for your business. Who's changed telecom operator in the last year? Who's changed from like BT to Sky to TalkTalk? I just changed before. Anyone from BT here? One of my favourite clients ever? Oh, good, so I can talk about them. Brilliant. I changed from TalkTalk to BT before Christmas. How many times did they ask me my phone number? 19 times so far. Which phone was I phoning up from? The phone number they asked me for. 19 times they asked me for that phone number. Am I impressed? When I phone up First Direct, how many times they asked me for my bank account number? Never. Absolutely ridiculous. So we all know data is useful. Some of your businesses are based on data. Other people are failing in operations because they can't use data. Wrong inventory, wrong price. You know this. My contention today is this is becoming even more powerful in marketing. Yeah? This is connecting marketing, which used to be kind of, well, we're not quite sure about how all that works, directly to cost of sale and directly to the bottom line of companies in a way that could never have been done before. So people say, well, what's internet changing? We don't think it's actually changing marketing. People are like, oh, it's all changing. Google's changed everything. The internet's changed everything. Fundamentally, marketing is the same thing. The right message, how do you get creative? If you haven't got the great story, if you haven't actually got a product people want, it doesn't matter how much you market it. If you haven't got a great product with a great story behind you, that's kind of an uphill battle from there. How do you then tell that story to the right people at the right time? Is, from my perspective, that's the simple function of marketing. How do you get the message out there? So the goals are the same. You can say, well, we're trying to get this message out. We're trying to get this awareness. We're trying to get some sales. We want conversions. There's a whole bunch of goals that look very similar to direct marketing and door drops back in the day, or big outdoor campaigns or TV. We don't think it's changed. If there's one thing we would love people to talk to us about, it's not conversion rates and opt-ins, et cetera, et cetera. It's actually core goals. It's marketing goals. The number of times I'll have a campaign that hasn't worked too well for a client escalated to me, and I'll ask the simple question, well, what were the goals? What were you trying to achieve? And they'll say, oh, we wanted more sales. We say, well, if you wanted more sales, why did you run a big 24-hour splash on YouTube over a weekend? What was that all about then? Oh, well, my boss told me we should run a YouTube campaign. So you've got to pick the right tool for the right job. What are the goals? What are the marketing goals? We don't think they've changed. What's fundamentally changed is the world of media. Consumption and production. Hands up who's still got BlackBerry on them. Okay, that's almost, this is kind of, I ask this pretty much all the time as my own little survey. 2 years ago, 3 years ago maybe, I guarantee that would be more than half in the room. Specifically a business-orientated audience with people of a more senior demographic in companies. One of my favourite gags before, it's drying up a bit now, was to go, some of you have probably done it too, to be honest. Go to a company, ask who's got BlackBerries, everyone puts their hand up, and then I kind of pick on the boss and say you should get them all Android phones or iPhones. Simple to make me popular. But that was about 8 or 9, yeah? Think about how you consume media just a few years ago. It wasn't through one of these. Yeah, it's fundamental change. And it's who's taken a picture with their phone in the last 48 hours? Unbelievable. Think about how much data is getting produced. What do you do with that? Do you just leave it on your phone and never look at it again? Or do you stick it on Facebook or stick it in some drive? It's all media. It's all getting out there. And it's just, so you've got, in my mind, you've got basically this world of media production. Media production has been entirely democratized, almost infinite amount of media production. So currently 1 billion users on YouTube now, monthly, creating roughly uploading 300 hours of content every minute. Just an insane explosion. So I was out skiing at the weekend. What's the first thing I get in my inbox when I get back? A video edited, 5-minute long video, edited by one of the folks I was skiing with, music track on top, ski video of the weekend. So I'm watching that. I'm watching that in a much more engaged way than I'm watching TV, but then I go home, I'm watching that on my phone, and my wife sat beside me watching some Silent Witness on iPlayer. Weirdly, the TV's still on in the background. It's like, what's going on? 10 o'clock news. I saw the news on the train on my phone, but I'm still watching on TV. It's just insane, this explosion of production and consumption. We've now seen more than 100 billion searches every month. 100 billion searches. Anyone work in the cloud services space? Anything to cloud services? Few people. One search every 6 seconds in the UK for cloud services terms. So since I've been speaking up here, a whole bunch of just trundled along. They've gone through little Google, popped out the other end, and the obvious question is, did that person end up on your website or somebody else's? So that's it. Media consumption has exploded. The rules of the game have changed, but the goals are exactly the same. Yeah, how do you go about fixing that? Oh, how do you go forward in the slides? Yeah, how do you go about doing your thing now? Used to be pretty easy. You had, well, not easy, but you had, the rules were fixed in quite a long period of time. Econometric model, your previous marketing goals, your previous media spend, you didn't zero baseline it every year. You just looked at that and went, well, we'll tweak it, and then we'll look at what those tweaks are and how do they affect the sales outputs. Kind of cause and effect, makes sense. My contention would be, specifically in a B2B space, the world of mass media marketing, reach and frequency, was never really where you wanted to be anyway. It was all a bit like, oh, come on, seriously, we've got a sales team over here that are going and seeing the people that actually buy stuff, and you lot, well done. Terminal 1 posters, well done, but how do the two connect? In my previous life, I was a consultant. The marketing stuff, basically, we thought they produced the brochures. That was pretty much it. Like, could you get some brochures so we can take them out and see people about the thing? And I'll kind of chuck that in just to make me look a bit slicker because it was the right color, basically. That's how I viewed marketing in my previous existence. The world has changed now. You can get to those people. And the way you get to those people at the right time, at the right place, with the right message, is through the use of data. We believe data is that currency. If you're doing it well, you get to the right people with the right message at the right time. You're using the data badly, you may have a spectacular creative structure. You might have the best product with the best story, but if it's not getting to those folk, how much more expensive is that? It used to be kind of expensive and you could buy a sales team, but looking at the media piece, the world of media has exploded, so how do you get the cut through and how do you get effectively the reach and share of voice in that new exploded media market? That's, for us, that's the thing that I want everyone to try to work through. How do we get delivering on our goals in this world of exploded media? We believe through data. Yeah, and it's not just push anymore, it's the big pull. It's clearly search. You think about all we were doing was organising the world's information and making it universally accessible and useful. That was basically just taking data, making it into information and making it useful. And now, luckily, we sort of arguably, 8, 9 years ago, 11 years ago, you could argue, bumbled into that on a CPC model. People were searching for things. People were writing their intention in a little white box. And then we were able to sell that to people that want to get to them. Not just push, it's all about pull now. And now we're connecting all those data sets, and I'll come back to that. It's not just about who wants it at one moment in time. You want to build up in-market segments, understand what they're doing, how long is that purchase life cycle. That'll all be gone into detail today. How can you not just go bang, bang, bang? It's actually a collection. It's a storyline told over time to deliver on your goals. And without data, we don't believe you can tell that storyline now to deliver on those goals. So I've talked about data. And I'll put this framework out there just to think about for the day. How do you execute in this mass media world with infinite amount of possibilities to a very small group of decision makers that you want to get to over time? Well, firstly, you need to know who they are. So you've all done that before. You've all done that in a world of CRM. You've all done that in a world of leads lists. We actually believe you can now do it by, so this little bit here, big data. These are the big data sets, your data. I bet some of you may well have spent millions and millions of pounds and dollars on building out big data sets. Consultants, SAP, it's all good. Oracle, it's great. But what do you actually do with it? It's this bit here, it's the little data. Taking the data sets, it's a skills problem as much as it's an actual data problem. How do you combine your data, all your first-party data, third-party data, other stuff that's out there already? I'm sure some of you know and love that. We talked about a bit of data. And then from our perspective, very importantly, Google's data. We've got a lot of data. How do you bring that into play and in real time find out those small decision sets that actually are your competitive advantage? Getting this right and getting that better, even if you're in a market with 3 or 4 competitors, you're in an oligopoly, there's just 3 or 4 of you, the one that does this better has immediately got a competitive advantage. And we would say, how do you do that better? Technology. Be it, why was Google search better than Yahoo search? Just deployment of better technology, better algorithms, machine learning, artificial intelligence. It's all coming into play. We've now got some of our algorithms can recognize cats' faces on YouTube. That's a bit weird, isn't it? That's like sort of, and it's done through neural networks. We're literally building a thing called Google Brain that can see cats in videos. Not quite sure why that's useful, but I'm certain at some point someone will use it for something. Those same teams are working on our bidding algorithms. You put a goal into our buying systems like DoubleClick Bid Manager. It's pretty much those same neural networks that are helping out how do you bid at the right place at the right time for your message to that piece of that audience. We believe technology delivers the right data at the right time to make it your competitive advantage. Lots of people will tell you they've got great technology. We employ rocket scientists. Fairly certain we've got some decent technology on relatively decent price points, so it gives you effectiveness and efficiency. Are you doing it well and getting the right answers? And are you doing it cheaply and brilliantly so you don't have to have a whole marketing team with spreadsheets sat in the corner of the office? And on that point of how well do you do it, this is my last point. Get to the right audience, use great technology as competitive advantage with your data. And then the third point, probably the hardest point, how do you integrate it all? The number of times I talk to people that have built one thing and they go, we've absolutely smashed it. We have the best customer data on this segment ever for acquisition. Okay, great. And what's the lifetime value of one of those people you acquired? No, that's the retention department. And so it happens in companies, it happens in Google. We have very similar discussions. How do you integrate? How do you, and we've built the DoubleClick platform so you can buy across all and you can manage across all. So your marketing doesn't become, I've got a search person who's arguing for budget against a display person, and then some other person from a whole different part of the organization shown up and said, I'm the social manager, I want to run a YouTube channel. That's just crazy speak, and you'll end up with them competing with each other. You may have now teams that don't want to give each other their data sets because they don't want the other team to get more budget. It all happens. I've seen these discussions. Obviously, none of you lot, present company accepted, but these things do happen out in the wild. They do happen inside Google as well. I absolutely guarantee it. So I would say integration. How do you build this? If we wind the clock back only 3 years, this couldn't happen. The idea that you could work out who'd been to your site, and then in real time, in 10th of a second roughly, or as I like to call it, 6 beats of an eye, bid on your search at a different price. Seems so obvious. You're like, well, if someone's come here, I can remarket to them. Well, why don't you bid up and down based on are they in market for your product? Have they been to your your shopping basket? Have they downloaded a brochure? Have they ended up watching a 5-minute YouTube video? Surely the person that's been to your website and looked at your product 5 times, watched 3 YouTube videos, and then searched for a product term that's one of yours is worth more than the same person that has searched for that product term and you've never seen them before. If you haven't done the data manipulation, you're paying the same amount for anyone that searches for that word. Your competitor has just taken them off you with, all they've done is that data manipulation. All they've done is work out who's in market and track them through their decision-making cycle. So that's it. As I just said at the end there, we believe that competitive advantage, everything else being equal, and of course not everything is equal, but we believe your ability to capture, manipulate, and then use your data is your core competitive advantage. And as the world moves on, TV becomes addressable and we have more biddable TV, more information, so you're going to get more and more signals. Where is the person? Who are they? All of these signals come into play. It's only ever going to get more. So if you haven't started now and your competitors have, they're going to be ahead of you as this becomes a bigger piece of how you see the world. I'll end with that. We see data as core. The rest of the day is how you can ignite your marketing, but please keep that in the back of your mind as you go through the rest of the day. Thank you very much for coming. Ready?
Fantastic insight there in the power of data and what that really means to our business, and also insight into the fact that 19 times being asked your phone number whilst on the phone. Brilliant. Now what I would like to do is change pace slightly. As I said before, we're going to be looking at data. We're going to be looking at how to ignite your customers, your brand, and your business. Today and right now, we're going to be talking about creativity, how to ignite creativity within your organization. I'm really pleased to invite Kirk Vallis up onto stage. Kirk heads our BrandLabs business here in the UK, or actually across Northern Europe. And Kirk has a real approach to business, an approach to thinking that really has changed the way that we're doing business internally within Google. So I'm really pleased to have Kirk come up and share some of those experiences with you. Welcome, Kirk.
Oh dear. Excuse me, I got a cold. I was listening to Radio 4 this morning. I don't listen to Radio 4 normally, don't worry. And the Today programme, just all that chat about data. We spend our whole time, I'm sure you do as well, particularly at Google, we spend our whole time worried about what's the implications of people becoming more and more aware of how much data is being stored about them, particularly when it comes to marketing. If you get a chance to go online to the BBC website, have a listen back to this. There's a really interesting phenomenon that's growing at the moment in Japan, where their understanding and awareness of data and what's being captured about them as consumers is huge. And they're not against it. Actually, the opposite. They are using it to understand what it says about their social status. So they are tweeting to each other. If someone gets shown a BMW ad in Japan, people are tweeting to each other, just got shown a BMW ad, look at me. And the opposite is if they're getting exposed to advertising and they're assuming that advertising is being dictated by the data that we hold about them, and it's not an ad that they would like to see about themselves, the opposite, they're like going, what's going on? What am I doing wrong? And so it was just a really interesting flip on that whole thing, and one that I would totally expect to see probably go a bit global as well. So it was just a very interesting dynamic. Anyway, that's all I've got to say about data. I know nothing more. So give me a second. Right, okay, let's get going. So my name's Kirk. I work in a team called BrandLab, and actually the wider team I lead is called Magic at Google. So if you excuse the indulgent title, our job is just to ensure that at Google we continually foster the culture within our business of of how we work, not just what we do. Some great stuff happens. And every time good stuff happens at Google, and the belief is in all of our organizations, it's no coincidence that there are common behaviors and human traits that drive that. We have an expression here at Google, which is behavior eats process for breakfast. What we mean by that is how we show up to any given task, problem, or situation that we're trying to solve or be creative around. How we are in that moment, scientifically proven to have more of an impact on success than the agenda, the process that we're following, even the data. And Kevin even alluded to it himself. You know, data is useless unless you've got people with the right skills, and I would say with the right behaviors to draw from it, to dig into it with curiosity and look for those things that your competitors aren't able to see as well. So that's me. My mission today is just to share some practical principles with you of things that I see from my day-to-day work, not only with Google. I've worked with Disney, Nike in the past. I've also spent a lot of work in the financial sector and with almost all of the top 10 pharmaceutical companies around the world. So these principles aren't just this fluffy stuff that exists in the nice companies like Disney. They are critical to success in the organizations who develop new drugs for cancer and HIV as well. So just some principles for you to take into the rest of today and beyond. I also want it to be a little bit energizing because I'm not feeling great, and I want this to be a fun day for you as well. So let's play a game. What I'd like you to do, so Richard already asked you to introduce yourself to people standing either side of you. We're going to go a step further. I would like you to stand up and turn to face a partner. So just stand up and turn to face somebody, anyone, either side. Where is Richard? Richard, can I borrow you? Sorry, I've stolen your partner. We can have, there we go, excellent. Good stuff. Thank you. So, I would like you to look each other in the eyes. Look each other in the eyes. Give each other a big smile. Give each other a big smile. There we go. Say something nice to them if you like, Richard. Awesome kickoff. Awesome. As always. As always.
Your hair's looking great.
As always. Good stuff. Okay, continuing to look at each other in the eyes. Continuing to look each other in the eyes. I just want you to raise your arms up to shoulder height. So look each other in the eyes, maintain eye contact, shoulder height. Give your fingers a little wiggle. Check they're still there. Excellent, good stuff. Now raise your hands just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. I'd like you to lean very gently to your left, which should mean opposite directions. There we go, good. What I'd like you to do now is just go in and give each other a big manly hug. There we go. Cheers. There we go. Thank you, Richard. Cheers. There we go. Good stuff. Grab a seat. Nice. Awesome. Thank you, Kirk. I've been wanting to have bodily contact with that person ever since I met them. Good stuff. Thank you. Thank you for that. Those of you who I've had the pleasure of meeting before, I often kick off with that little game, and for good reason. Two reasons why we played that game. Firstly, it was a bit of fun. You are all sitting there. There are more smiles on your faces than there were before you stood up. It's done its job there. We want today to be a lot of fun for you, but there's also a very real science behind it as well. And we, again, another expression that we hear all the time within Google, you don't always have to be serious to innovate. Henry Ford used to fine people, dock their wages in the Ford Motor Company 100 years ago if he saw them smiling at work. We've moved on, thankfully, from that. But it's still very much a false narrative that I need to get work done, I need to solve this problem, I need to hunker down and concentrate. And that often results in a frown. There is a proven science in the relationship between the state that your brain is in at any given time and your ability to think differently. Be creative around the challenges and the problems that you're trying to solve. It's all to do with the reticular activating system. It's all very complex. But essentially, a smile, being in a relaxed smile environment, like you are now, smiling, proven to open the reticular activating system and allow your brain to access all of the great stimulus that's in there, which is where, by the way, ideas come from. There was a recent study done in the US where they actually got groups of people to put pencils in their teeth to force a smile. And then they studied the brain, and it was releasing the right chemicals that help us to think differently around our challenges. And to prove the point, they had control groups who had to put pencils under their lips to create a frown. So even just the act of smiling, even if it's not backed up by pure joy that's driving it, does help us to think differently around our challenges. Anyone heard that expression, I'm too busy to think? It's totally true. The more busy and the more that you are sort of overwhelmed by what you're trying to solve, the less likely you are to solve it, or certainly think differently around it. So, those of you that have been spent time in any of our campuses, you'll see that at Google, we want it to be a fun environment in which we work in as well. So that's the first reason why we played that game. The second is this point. This is a guy called Lee Clow, who's global chairman of TBWA, so a big ad man, very well respected. And he says, ideas should be scary. If an idea doesn't feel scary, it's not an idea. And our expression around that is this, to get uncomfortably excited. Larry and Sergey, the first day they set up Google, they set themselves the challenge of constantly being uncomfortably excited about the things that we are trying to solve. What I mean by that is that when you did that exercise, most of us probably felt a little bit uncomfortable. It's a little bit cheesy, start the day, icebreaker type stuff, and a little bit uncomfortable. Some of you, as I said, were probably glad to have the bodily contact, but it's a little bit uncomfortable. And I just wanted us to connect with that feeling, those butterflies in your stomach, if you like, because at Google, those butterflies are where innovation comes from. And so the point here is if you're feeling totally safe and secure about the ideas and the things that you're implementing in your business as a result of today, it's probably not going to do a lot of difference. And at Google, we ask ourselves, if we're not uncomfortable around something, it's probably not new, different, and it's probably not something our competitors aren't already doing. So that feeling is brilliant. There is a safe word, which is excited. If you're not excited and you're just uncomfortable, that's not good. But if you've got those feelings and you're still going, yeah, you know, saying, there's a bit of risk in this, but I'm going to do it anyway, then that is the sweet spot for creativity and innovation. Wow, all that from one game. So I'm just going to share with you a bit about what we do at Google to constantly get uncomfortably excited, and some principles that hopefully you might choose to take and make your own as well. And the first is this: constantly seek to disrupt yourself, because if you don't, somebody else will. I'll tell you a story to bring this to life. So back in the late 15th, early 16th century, ships like these were sailing all over the world, transporting spices from parts of the world to other parts of the world. It was the most valuable commodity of its time. Spices, mainly because it preserved food. Actually, in most cases, it didn't preserve food. It just stopped rotten food from tasting so bad. But it was really, really valuable. And what do you think the spice trade were doing to innovate? What could they have been doing? So it was essentially based on having ships transport goods around the world. What could they have done to innovate that industry? What were they doing? What do you think they might have done? Interactive moment, by the way. Faster ships. How do we make the ships go faster? What else? Yeah, brilliant. What else? Sorry? Dry them out. So actually, we don't have to. So if we can't go faster, how do we make them last longer? Lovely. What else? Bigger ships. Yeah. How do we get more of this stuff across the world quicker so that it lasts longer? All that kind of stuff. Brilliant. Excellent. And that's exactly what they did. But they were disrupted overnight because somebody realized that you could insulate the hulls of the ships. And if you did so, ice wouldn't melt so fast. And so overnight, by insulating hulls of ships, companies mainly in North America were able to cut big chunks of ice out of big lakes in North America and transport it around the world. And almost overnight, the spice trade was wiped out because of ice. So there was a different way to preserve food. And some of you may have seen like Western films where they literally get their weekly delivery of ice and it's kind of chipped off and sold. So really interesting there. So the ice trade disrupted the spice trade because they thought about it in a whole new world. The ice trade was then disrupted by the artificial ice trade because somebody worked out that you could create ice artificially and then it didn't need to be transported at all, and all of a sudden ships had no use in that world at all. And then the artificial ice trade was disrupted by, guess what, the refrigeration trade, etc. The point is, this is an example that we see all the time. All the time. History tells us time and time again that every market will get disrupted eventually. It always does. And it's very rare that it gets disrupted by the incumbent. It's very rare that the incumbent, because we are obsessed with making the things that we currently do well a bit better. Versus actually looking at the whole value proposition. I was with Adidas. I was fortunate enough to spend some time with Adidas last year, and I gave them this provocation, which they thanked me for, actually, thankfully. They have got a football boot that anyone here play football or used to play football. Yeah, I'd still like to think I'm Ryan Giggs. I'm nowhere near it, and never was. So Adidas have a football boot that weighs 104 grams. They are so proud of it. More importantly, they're working on a soccer boot that's going to weigh 99 grams. Amazing. Now, my provocation to them was, I'm not sure there's many people in the world that aren't buying your football boots because they're 104 grams, but will go flocking to the stores to buy them the minute they become 99. Because they're just obsessed with incremental change on something they already do well. And my provocation to them was this. What if Puma came in and sold consumers a $1,000 3D printer that came with a lifetime supply of license to download any boot that they have in any color whenever you like? If that was possible, how much do you think kids mainly and amateur sports people like ourselves, how much do you think that we would tolerate a boot weighing? And my hunch is a lot more than 104 grams. We'd probably allow it to be double or 3 times if we have that ability to personalize on there. We totally change the market. And this is what these people do. It's what Uber did, Airbnb did, etc. They're changing the world because they're changing the value proposition. And that's how they're able to disrupt stuff. I'm just going to go off on a bit of a tangent because I just think it's an amazing story. So Uber is probably going to be worth about market cap of about 30 billion. We reckon, when it floats, etc. That's based on an annual revenue of about 2 billion. So a multiplier of 15. If you like. The average or the accepted traditional multiplier for market cap or value in businesses based on annual turnover is about 4, I think. Depends on the industry or where you come from. So already these companies totally disrupting that for a start. What's also interesting with this is when the S&P 500 started in 1920, the stock exchange in America started in 1920, the average lifespan of a company in the stock exchange was 65 years. It's now 12 years is the average lifespan of a company in the S&P 500. So based on that model, Uber will never ever repay its valuation, and yet we're all flocking towards it. And I'm sure Google, Facebook, etc., all of those stocks. Really interesting talking about disruption. But back to the point. That's what these businesses have done well. And this is the worst slide you're going to see today, but I'm awful at PowerPoint or Google Docs or whatever it be. So I thought I'd just draw it and take a picture. So this is why this happens, and it's very crude and simple. This is what incumbents tend to do. They tend to do incremental innovations around an established value proposition that the consumers can use. But eventually they get to a point where they make it better than the consumers can ever use. It's the same with cars. You know, we're always trying to make them faster, etc. They can't go faster. They rarely can use them, etc. There's lots of stories I can give you there. And that's what incumbents do. Whereas people who come in and disrupt, they'll start down here and they'll often fail. It goes with a lot of failure, trial and error, doesn't work. For every person for every company, for every Uber, there's probably 1 million companies that have tried to disrupt the taxi business in the US and the Western world. But eventually, when they get there, they will excel and fly. And it's really, really interesting and something that we should see, that we should keep an eye on. And that's my push to you is, what are you doing to disrupt yourself? Oh yeah, sorry. So that's my question that we should be asking ourselves. When is good enough good enough? Back in our businesses, we're getting our people to work and be curious around the challenges we're asking them to solve. But is it already good enough? And if it is, then just focus on something new. Try and look for problems that you could solve. Rather than just constantly trying to improve the established ones that you know of. This is what we do at Google. So we do not work on the assumption that we will have a search business in 20 years' time. Our hypothesis is that we won't. and we hope we do, obviously. But there is a part of us that is saying, okay, how do we disrupt our own organization? And that's what these things do. Often people go to us, how does driverless cars fit in with Google's business ambition or business vision? And it doesn't, but that's the point. We're trying to disrupt. We may well be a healthcare business in 20 to 30 years' time. But unless we do something, we're just sitting there waiting to be disrupted. So what can you do? And of course, there's a caveat here, a humble point. We have a large cash cow, which is search, which allows us to fund this stuff. So I get it, right? But the principle is, what can we be doing just to explore new things all the time? And even if it's not about new business models, even within our established existing business models, what can you do to try and disrupt those as well? This is our ambition or our challenge for search, okay? It's not shown that often, but I did see an engineer in California share this with some pretty senior execs, so it's definitely out there. This is what Larry wants us to achieve. So he doesn't want 10 search results, doesn't want loads of them down the side. We should, if we hold the right data and context for people, we should be able to understand exactly what they're searching for, regardless of the permutations or the way that they ask for it. It shouldn't just be based on that. It should be based on other context. And we should then be able to give them exactly what they want. And that, if we do it perfectly, is one result. One result. People don't search on Google for choice. They search for the right answer. So that's us trying to disrupt ourselves, because you're probably sitting there thinking the same thing that I am, which is, well, hang on a minute, what does that mean for us? And what does that mean for advertising and all of our revenue? But again, back to Google's, firstly, if we ever get there, we'll worry about it then. And secondly, we've been pretty successful in the past at focusing on the user and then figuring out how to monetize it after. Again, we might not get there. But unless we seek to disrupt ourselves, then we're guaranteed to never get there, because someone will come and do it even better. Let's play another game, shall we? Where are we? So another thing we do so I just want to play a game just to prove the point around another thing we do to constantly disrupt ourselves or to constantly get uncomfortably excited. So this is a brain teaser. Don't worry, there's no physical contact in this one. You can hold hands if you like, if it makes you feel better doing it. So in a moment, I'm going to show you a picture. It's a picture with just a white screen with two horizontal lines drawn on it. One of the horizontal lines has arrows pointing inwards. One of them has arrows pointing outwards, depending on where you are, okay? A few of you nodding. I think some of you have seen this before. That's great, in fact. I want you to tell me which of the lines is longest, okay? Just the horizontal lines, which of them is longest. You've got three options. The top one, the bottom one, or they're both the same, all right? So don't think about this too much. This is not an analytical exercise. I want you to shout it out as soon as you see it. In fact, let me ask a question. Who here thinks they know what they're going to say already? Yeah, a few of us. Good, right. Well, then go for it. Go for it. What is it? Same. Top one. So the top one is longer. And actually, it's quite, our eyes don't deceive us. It is longer. The point is, our brain says, I've seen this before. I've seen this before. I know what it is. It's one of those optical illusions. I'm not going to be caught out. They're both the same. Well, all good fun and games for this exercise, but that is exactly what our brains do every single day around everything we do. Every challenge we face at work, every problem, everything that's on your list of stuff you need to solve, your brain will be fighting to go, I've seen this before, I already know the answer. And guess what? That answer won't be anything new. It'll just be the same answer that you've always got. It's like driving a car, only being able to look in your rearview mirror. And there's some principles around this. So anyone heard of Edward de Bono? Yeah, so really cool guy, Irish guy, the self-proclaimed godfather of creativity. What a title. And he used this model. This is one of his lesser-known models, but it's, I think, his most powerful. So how he describes it is, imagine your brain is like a mountain, and every piece of information or experience you have in your life is like a raindrop falling on that mountain. And the more and more experiences you have around something, or information that you get around something, those raindrops start to cluster together to form what he calls streams of consciousness. And then, when you have lots of information about something, expertise, your jobs, the sectors you work in, your families, your hobbies, all those things as well, you have so much information and experience that those streams of consciousness become so wide and deep that they become rivers of thinking. And your brain loves rivers of thinking. It's what it did then when you were playing that game with me. It's what it does every single day. It says, I've seen this before, and then it looks in there for the answer. But guess what? It will never be a new answer, because it's only based on what you've already experienced. And he calls this, as I said, rivers of thinking. Rivers of thinking, brilliant, if you want the one right answer. If there's only ever going to be one right answer, last year's turnover, whatever it be, then rivers of thinking are brilliant. If you are looking for new and different ways to solve problems or tackle your business or the challenges that you face or opportunities that you have observed, rivers of thinking are terrible, and you need to get out of them. And provocation and stimulus is what does that. Provocation, why? Just asking questions. Why? Why are we doing this? What if? Etc. Having a conversation. And we think this is human. This isn't process. This is what Googlers do all the time. This is why we have the environments we have to collide people together so that they can have open conversations informally around challenges, particularly when that provocation comes from somebody who doesn't know about your challenge. Because their naivety, the fact that they don't have your river of thinking, is a brilliant thing. So we have that. And of course, some stimulus as well. And it comes back to this point that I made before, which is behavior eats process for breakfast. How you get out of your river of thinking isn't a process, it's how you behave. It's just your constant desire to want to. So I'll move very quick because we're trying to catch up on time. 2 more quick games just to prove, to bring to life some of the behaviors that I'm talking about, just a couple. The first one is let's play another quick game. I'm going to give you a terrible idea. All right, it's a terrible idea. Anyone here work in the airline industry or work with the airline sector to some degree? Okay, yeah, good stuff. So I want you to imagine we've all been employed by Virgin Atlantic to improve the customer experience on their flights, okay? I've got an idea, and it's a bad one. Now, your river of thinking will crave to want to tell me all the reasons why this is a bad idea. I want you to suspend that judgment and tell me why this might be a good idea for the passengers, okay? All the reasons why this would be a good idea for the passengers or us, because of course, we want to improve the customer experience to make more money, etc. Are you ready for it? Yes. Good, thank you, thank you. So my idea is to stick seats on the outside of the wings of the planes, all right? So, your brain is going, terrible, terrible, terrible. Fight it. Tell me, why would that be a good idea? So what a view. What a view. What else? Legroom. 40,000 feet of legroom. You like that? Woo! We sell it at a premium. Yeah, first class, no good anymore. You want wing class. Excellent. What else? Oh, nice. So we can actually, product extensions. Oh, yeah. Would you like a new coat? This will cost you $100. Good stuff. What else do we have? Fresh air. They're lovely. You can smoke. That'd be a good one. What else? Thrills, so we can sell it as a thrill seeker. You can stand if you like. We'll strap you to the wings. We don't care. Yeah, whatever. What else?
Great tan.
Great. So the holiday before the holiday. Yeah, the tan, the hairdo, whatever it is. Lovely. Excellent. Good stuff. I'll stop you there. Thank you. Brilliant. You have just achieved what we all need to do, which is to get out of our rivers of thinking, and it's as simple as that. By the way, rivers of thinking are not something you either have or you don't have. We all have them. And arguably, the more intelligent you are or the more informed and experienced you are around what you do, the deeper and wider your rivers of thinking will be. It's not a debate as to whether I have them or not. It's just that I have them, recognize it, and get out of them. It's as simple as that. Oh, by the way, let's bring this to life. So, just by being silly like that, we could come up with some really good solutions. So let's take the tan and the hair. So actually, Virgin Atlantic, they experimented for a long time with having manicures and pedicures up in the air for business class. It didn't work so well for them, but now they have a salon in their business class lounge at Heathrow, and people can have their hair done or have a sunbed, etc. Again, you know, the windows, talking about the view, the windows are now double the size on the A380 than they were on 747s, etc. So some of these things that seem crazy, actually, if we just allow ourselves to play with it for a bit, then I guarantee there will be a principle in there that we can build. we're not going to do seats on the wings of planes, but what we are going to do is go, we've just recognized loads of principles that are really important. Let's build those into things that actually can happen. And we call this being playful. And what we don't mean is to be childish. But what's that question that children ask all the time? Why? It normally ends with because I said so. But they ask that question why, and what it is about is being childlike. Dialing up that kind of curiosity, if you like, and asking those questions. And I'm going to share with you just one more behavior that goes with that, and I've already mentioned it. So be playful. Don't be wedded to the outcome. When you're looking at a challenge, not asking yourself, what would my brain want to do here, and recognizing that would immediately help you then to get over that and think of new and different options. And by the way, in business, ideas are just options. A bad idea never hurt anybody. Execution of a bad idea, yes, that can hurt people, but whilst they're just ideas, they're just options. Never need to see the light of day. So be playful, and finally, I'll leave you with this because I'm out of time. Oh, by the way, yeah, that's a lovely little picture that brings that to life. Have we seen that before? Yeah, excellent. Good. So, last one, have a raging curiosity. So I spoke about being playful. Have a raging curiosity. A guy called Niall Fitzgerald, who was global chairman of Unilever, said it brilliantly. He said, everybody talks about being customer-centric, and we've all used that language, I'm sure. It's nonsense. It's business jargon for how we organize structurally, but it does nothing to change the behaviors of our people. And he said we need to become customer-obsessed. Because that's what changes our behavior and dials up our curiosity. I'll leave you with a story which I think brings to life, and will hopefully, they talk about storytelling as a powerful tool for helping people remember important messages. So I'll tell you this story. Anyone here anyone here into fishing or used to go fishing as a lad or a lass? Excellent, yep. So a few of us. I used to go fishing lots as a kid with my dad. As I got a little bit older, I'd go with my best friend James. And James and I would go fishing, and my mum would drive us to the lake and leave us there all day. And on this particular day, it was really cold. So we had our big one-piece suits on, etc. And so we were sitting there fishing, as we do. And James gave me that little look and a nod, which was code for, I'm off to the toilet. So he grabbed the toilet roll and he walked into the woods. And he was gone about 10 minutes. I was like, oh, where's James? And then he was gone about 20 minutes. And I was starting to worry a little bit now. I know it was a number 2. Excuse my crude language, but still. And a half hour had passed. I was like, what is he doing? After 45 minutes, I was like, I've got to go and find him. I've got to go and find him. And at that point, as I just got up to go and find him, he came walking back from the woods. And he had this really just odd expression on his face. I said, James, where have you been? I've been worried about you. He went, the strangest thing happened. And he said, I went to the toilet. He said, I went. I was squatting, I went. And he said, and I stood up, and he said, I turned around to have a look, just to admire it. I don't know. It wasn't there. He said, I felt it. I know, I definitely went. I definitely went. He said, I've just been looking for it. This is the craziest thing. And with that, he zipped up his one piece and put his hood on. So, as you spend the rest of today going through data, talking about the power of data and technology and everything there, just to remind ourselves of the need for us to remain human and dial up our curiosity, because, this is the line, unless you're prepared to look in the unusual places for the things that you seek, you might end up with poo on your face. There you go. Thank you. Thanks for your time. Cheers. Cheers. Thank you. Cheers. Do you want to take that? Sorry.
Blimey, I'm really nervous about coming back on the stage after that. I'm not sure I can follow up a poo story quite as well as that. Fortunately, I don't have to. It's now time for a break. I promised you breaks, and now it's time for our first break. We have 15 whole minutes. 15 whole minutes. So please grab yourself coffees and drinks. The loos are behind here, into the foyer, left or right doors. Be back in 15 minutes, please. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. We're just about to get started again.
Stereoscopics is a biddable media specialist. We grew into an analytics specialist, and recently, in the last 2 years, we've started doing programmatic display. We have a number of B2B clients that have saturated the current interest within the market, and so what they're looking to do is generate more reach. And if I think of clients like SagePay, through the use of click trackers in an integrated attribution environment, you can see over a third of our ultimate conversions have display as their first point of interaction. And so it's feeding the top of the funnel. Feeding the funnel with display gives you a really good understanding of the motives that someone starts off with, where they are in the process. And as you go through, the ability to optimize is absolutely pivotal. One of the critical advantages that we've seen within a B2B environment is that because we can optimize the performance of the campaign as the campaign develops, we tend to see that over time the click-through rates rise 2, 3, 4, 5, 600%, because we're targeting people with a relevant message. There's more that can be done with display as well. So for example, you've got a complex or concept-based business model, which we see often within a B2B environment, where you're trying to provide a service that people aren't currently familiar with. Well, if people aren't looking for it, search is difficult. So you want to introduce the proposition. Video particularly can be really effective at doing that. Remarketing is often considered to be a sort of B2C, sort of close that interest point. But if you take a more mature approach to it, it can work really well from a vendor verification point of view. That if you're looking for either a tech or service provider, giving the impression that you are big and heavyweight by recirculating your ads to people is strong. You can recirculate different USPs back to the same individual. For a lot of our clients, particularly in managed hosting, we take a sequential approach, because you tend to find that if you look at the multi-channel funnel within hosting, there is no long tail. So it'll be hosting, 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 and then conversion. They don't tend to evolve their search taxonomy. So what we can do is have a more active dialogue with them through remarketing list research and remarketing across the GDN and DoubleClick in order to evolve the proposition in line with their evolving interactions with the site. An example of an advertiser that has been very sophisticated and has really embraced programmatic display is JP Asset Management, whereby we have an extremely sophisticated targeting structure broken down into sort of tens of thousands of units of targeting. As we target an individual, we can do so on a variety of different media inventory environments, meaning that we can target the right person in a cheaper cost source than they might have done historically. That person then moves through the conversion funnel. As they log in, we then use a series of systems to access publicly accessible information on the total investments from those individual fund managers. We then cross-reference that with how much they invest with JP Morgan, giving us an insight into the potential value of that lead, which dictates whether they have a salesperson go out and visit them, whether they go into a telephone nurturing process, or whether we just do a really sophisticated remarketing strategy based on our expected value. We then consolidate and anonymize that information, feed that back into first-party targeting into DoubleClick, which then evolves our display targeting. And so our investment through the process evolves based on the value. And that whole process is evolving in real time. So ensuring that we can hit those people with the right message at the right time and evolve the message as their relationship evolves with JP Morgan is absolutely critical. And so for a number of our financial institutions, for example, we've seen 75 to 80% improvement in the conversion volumes by introducing display. From a reach perspective, it's critical. From a cost base, it's often cheaper. From an environment whereby we can introduce, it's very powerful, and particularly for conceptual sales processes, it's critical.
Welcome back. I hope you had time to grab coffee and some snacks and something just to keep that energy going. How have we found it so far? How was the first couple of sessions? Great, good, enjoyable, energetic? Fantastic, that's great. Thanks for so many of you during the break that actually came up to me and shared your stories about number twos. That's very kind of you. but actually you don't need to do that. Trust me, you don't need to do that. But thank you anyway. So what we're going to do now is we're going to change pace slightly. So we've started off with Kevin outlining about data and how data is the foundation, the new lifeblood of marketing. And then Kirk talking to us about creativity, about behaviors, about how if we change our behaviors, it's going to change the way that we think, change the way that we're going to act and interact. Now we're going to change pace a little bit, and we're going to go into more of the business side, more of the business focus. What does it mean? How can we ignite our businesses? And I'm really, really pleased that we've got Maggie Buggie, who's going to join us today to speak about her experiences and what she's been doing and how she's helping other companies. Maggie is Vice President and Global Head of Digital Sales and Marketing for Capgemini. She spends a huge amount of her time working with the C-suite in large companies and actually helping them transform their businesses. So now we're getting to the cold face, the kind of what does this practically mean for you and your organization. So please join me in welcoming Maggie to the stage. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I was just thinking this afternoon I'm going to see one of our most, by their own admission, one of our most conservative clients. And from Kirk's session, I was thinking I'm going to tell them they need a team called Magic, they need to hug it out, but I'm going to leave out the last points around activities in woods. I can't really see that working quite so well for me in pitches as it did for him in sharing about behavior and creativity. So good morning, it's really good to be with you here today. As Richard said, I'm going to talk about what does this actually mean for business? Some of these fantastic principles and lessons that we're all really aware of now. But how do you actually boil that down into, if you are clear about the need and have bought into the principle of you need to be customer obsessed, you need to put your customer at the heart of your business. Indeed, you're in the process of doing that in your organization. What does taking that customer focused lens on your company actually mean in terms of redesigning the organization? So are there particular route maps that can be followed to doing that? And I can tell you that redesigning operations in a profitable way to deliver that meaningful customer promise is one of the biggest headaches facing CXOs at the moment. Because they're pretty aware that winning companies now are companies that are social, they are network by default, they are emotional. Emotion is no longer a dirty word to talk about in any organization, thankfully. And also that there is a huge question of relevance here. How do you create relevant, meaningful organizations that both customers and employees actually want to work with? And I'm going to delve into how some of our clients are actually going about that. So from a customer perspective, we've talked about some of the principles for marketing and in terms of customer expectation. But taking a customer-focused lens means that we need to give our customers the impression that their experience that they have with us as organizations that serve them and that they choose to interact with, those experiences are unique. That the engagement that they have with us is ongoing. That also we're providing the ability where the customer requires it or expects it in some cases to co-create content rather than just in some cases arrogantly pushing content out at them constantly. And also being very clear from an industry by industry perspective, what is meaningful content by industry? Because from a customer perspective, you're going to want a very different nature of content, well, I know I do, from my utility company compared to what I'm willing to receive from Alexander McQueen, say. Slightly more interest in the latter. And also in terms of consumer first, what does that actually mean? I love the term and the principles around customer obsession, but at the end of the day, I don't get paid and my company doesn't get paid and no one gets bonuses in our organization if we don't deliver profitable engagements to our customers. And when we talk about consumer and customer first, we need to get more comfortable about also talking about profitability in the context of that principle. So in redesigning operations and considering the fundamental impact of digital on business, it's consumer first, but delivering a profitable customer promise. because capitalism is cool, it's okay. And also, how do you obviously achieve the holy grail of building long-term empathetic relationships? We've got a long-running research study with the MIT Center for Digital Business in Boston. And we embarked on that investment because we were quite clear that whilst the fantastic innovative companies, one of whom we're being hosted by today, Google, others like Apple, Facebook, etc., whilst they offer fantastic insights and examples on innovative capacity and different ways of doing things, we felt there was a real paucity of insight and understanding of how are traditional enterprises and industries digitally transforming. So what does successful digital transformation look like for an insurance organization? What does it look like for a consumer products company? So we set out to understand that. And I won't bring you through all the data in the study, but I would encourage you to access it. It's all free on our website. That organizations that are digitally transforming in a particular way really understand how you combine what we call digital intensity, which means the what of what you invest in across customer experience, operational process, and business model investments, and also how you go about it. In that sense, digital is not just about technology, and digital maturity is absolutely, definitely not about technology. As Kirk was talking about, it is very much about behavior. And I would say if I had to pick one, what is the primary blocker that all our clients talk about now from achieving true digital mastery? This topic of culture is coming up again and again. How do you actually drive a cultural shift to being truly digitally enabled? And how do you manage that from both a practical perspective, i.e. your technological investments around digital capability, but then from also an emotional capacity and a training capacity and a cultural resonance across the organization. And we found that the digital masters in our study, which are unsurprisingly the companies that are doing this very well, there is a huge financial benefit to approaching digital transformation in a very particular way. And they're experiencing up to 26% increase in profitability. Interestingly, when you delve into the quants around it, there is a huge financial penalty emerging for organizations who do it very badly. And I'll just call out one example from a category called the fashionistas. And these tend to be organizations that love what we call the sexy parts of digital. They love talking about social. Like they talk about social all day long. And when you talk about marketing transformation, they hate talking about anything to do with well, you're going to have to fundamentally overhaul your relationships with your agencies globally and how you orchestrate services. No-go area. Instead, love talking about various campaigns to do with social, but don't like talking about the return investment that those campaigns can actually deliver. And in one of our clients in the telecommunications industry, to give you an example, we actually found that they had, I think, something like 8 pilots running concurrently across their global operation, all testing a relatively similar thing. Now, these pilots weren't tiny. They were funded all between up to a value of $500,000 US. So that behavior is typical of fashionistas. They're awesome at starting things. They tend to have great ideas. They're relatively fearless in terms of give something a bash and see how you get on. But they struggle with the more transformative part around having a clear, compelling vision and reason of why they are looking to change, and also investing in the governance and programmatic parts that actually, once something resonates and is starting to deliver some business value, how do you then roll that out into business as usual? And how do you scale that across the global operating model? And are you building in parallel the understanding of how your global operating model from a business and from a technology and from a process perspective needs to shift? In general, we found that there are 3 core areas that when you are considering or when you are pursuing a mission of really understanding and trying to manage effectively digital's fundamental impact on your business, that are these categories of customer experience. There we see capabilities such as CRM, digital marketing, commerce management all around e-commerce, etc. Operational process where you see around worker enablement, on-demand processes, on-demand supply chain, huge topic now for an awful lot of B2B industries, and also business model. What we mean by business model is that from a traditional industry perspective, are you actually asking yourself tough enough questions and being ambitious enough about what business opportunities does digital represent for you to completely change the game within your industry? Huge topic now for an awful lot of B2B industries is how do you actually go direct to customer without cannibalizing your existing B2B route to market? So looking at the different business model options that are available there. But the key point here is that for long-term profitability and managing sustainable growth, as opposed to just investing in the front end of customer experience to drive short-term uplift in growth, you must combine your initiatives intelligently across those three areas, because that is the how you deliver the impact on the bottom line of your digital initiatives, and crucially, how you turn digital investment into business advantage. And I really like that as a tagline, so it quite works for me. But the key point, the combination, an intelligent combination, is often much more important than going deeply into one of those investment areas. One of the principles that we speak about a lot with our clients is around the need to create a contextual view of your customer, but balancing that with a single view of your enterprise. I see a few familiar faces here who I know I've spoken to before, and you'll know that I have a big problem with the phrase single view of your customer, because it is a fact there are very few organizations that actually have a business need to invest in and support the cost of a single view of their customer at all times. What is much more relevant and important is having the ability to create a contextually rich view of your customer at the point in time in the buying cycle at which it matters. And the often neglected part of the other part of that is single view of your enterprise, is where we always say there really is no getting away from the heavy lifting of digital transformation if your objective is to truly, deeply transform your business. So what does single view of the enterprise mean? Well, having access to all your data, being able to identify, interrogate, and create actionable insight from your enterprise data, marrying it to more external customer data, as an example, completely changing the way in which people work. It is a fact in most traditional industries that functional employees operate in complete and utter silos, and the most often cited functional silo is obviously between marketing and the IT department. And I could tell you some very funny stories about some of the conversations that we facilitated between the first meetings, like very uncomfortable first dates between some of those functions, but time prevents me from bringing you through them. But the key point is organizations that work hard to create that single view of their enterprise through data, through interaction, and through culture, different ways of working. And yes, balancing that out then with very different governance frameworks and KPIs, whereby the board will not tolerate any longer departments not working together. So I'm a big fan of saying, carrot only works so far. At some point, you have to combine it with a little bit of stick. And I know in our organization and my own global sales force, behavior only really changes when you hit them in the pocket, as well as all the positive prompts around shifting their behavior to interacting differently. So key point there around contextual view of the customer and single view of the enterprise. Now, before I go into some of our client case studies, of which I'm going to talk about two, I want to talk more specifically about the marketing department and B2B marketing. So although the topic I've been given is broadly about business's fundamental impact on our ops, looking at the attendee list today, I think everyone is broadly from the marketing department. And there's a key point of like, well, how does the CFO see the marketeers? And like it's, the little fluffy kitten there. The fact is, not very respectfully, to be fair. And some choice but often used from both those parties in describing the other. But this is a really fundamental point, because when I think about our clients who are most successful and doing the most cutting edge things in truly changing their global marketing functions, they really understand that the need to address those changing, those difficult perceptions of marketing internally. You see the quote there around how marketing is actually viewed. And we use a phrase a lot, or my boss used the phrase a lot with me around, it's a good one. Perception is reality. So we all have great reasons for why certain things have and worked a certain way. But like it or lump it, perception is reality. So in order to drive actual change, either on an individual basis or on a macro basis, you have to address that perception. So how do we actually go about it? What we've seen from both our work and with our clients, but also we're going through our own change program around how sales and marketing interact and provide service to our clients. And from an internal perspective, there's a huge point around professionalism and consistency, because where the marketing department is perceived to not fully understand how the organization makes money, we've got a really big problem. And whilst it is important to have really good campaigns focused on increasing brand equity, marketing cannot ignore the top of the funnel. And I speak a lot in our business around the need to close the loop between sales and marketing. It's part of the reason that my job title has sales and marketing, because I wasn't going to run sales without control over the marketing department. And actually bringing and changing how marketing serves the business, but also the flip side of that, how sales and the business respect the contribution that marketing can make, both from a professional perspective and then obviously from a creative perspective also. Measurement and accountability. Oh, a lot of people don't like talking about quants, but really have to understand deeply ROMI, but also the way in which ROMI is measured differently now and how differently it's going to be managed in the future. And in one of the examples from our consumer products client base, I'll give you some insight into how a cutting edge company is doing that. Customer market knowledge. It's not enough just to have good ideas, but to have really strong understanding of legacy industry issues and current industry issues, and how propositions need to be shaped in the context of those issues. Anyone here working with the financial services industry will know there's no point talking about the future of retail banking if you don't deeply understand the shifts in regulation around conduct risk and the implications that has for how banks operate currently and what they're both allowed to do, both morally and also from a regulatory perspective. And then the content. The quality of content is absolutely paramount. There's a reason that one of the principles a lot of our clients are buying into is that content is king. So what nature of content from a B2B perspective, be it point of views, be it collaboration or value propositions, are the marketing department actually creating? From an external perspective, there's a huge point around how do you actually then, from a B2B perspective, personalize experiences? I spoke earlier about the need to balance contextual view of the customer with single view of the enterprise. Well, personalizing the experience is all about contextual understanding. So how are you using, be it cookies, be it search results, be it live data coming in off a plethora of social and digital channels to actually, at that moment in time, engage with your customer to increase their knowledge or support their buying decision or address their problem. Also, being credibly known to have deep, unique knowledge. Now, we're Capgemini, we're a services organization, consulting, outsourcing, technology. At the end of the day, what we do and sell has not changed. We sell people and insight and knowledge. And our marketing efforts need to be fully focused on building the trust of our clients, current and target, in their perception of our deep, unique knowledge, be it about industry, be it about technology, be it about some of these topics that we're talking about today. And then making my life easier. So information and support and marketing, messaging and campaigns is all very well and good, but what is the actual need that it is fulfilling? So from an external perspective, to actually make the job easier. From a B2B perspective, we're in a unique position to be able to do that compared to in the B2C space. and also moving to the space of trusted advisors, from dealing with that negative perception of purveyors of bullshit to being truly seen as trusted advisors to the business. And you know, from my own experience, I can say that our marketeers internally, the slow road to actually getting the global sales force to fully understand and appreciate their contribution. And it's all centered around, in our case, of building that understanding of how our marketing resource, both from a creative perspective, a content perspective, a subject matter expertise perspective, can be those trusted advisors. And in people-focused industries, that is supporting sales, but it can also be supporting other functions across the organization. So, big topic now is about treating B2B customers as consumers. And this is quite tricky. Is anybody in the room actually working on this at the moment, either in your own organization or in clients that you serve? Surprising. Big opportunity there for you guys. So this means that actually, how do you go direct to your consumer, be it from using actionable data that their end consumers are sharing or talking about, and actually applying that then to the B2B channel. And in the case study I'm going to talk about in a moment, it is all about this focus. I can tell you that across B2B industry, this is now one, along with the separation of creative and production, this is one of the biggest topics and areas of opportunity. Also, addressing and approaching the marketing of services much more like products. So being very clear about, well, benefits and very simple, plain messaging. In our industry, you know, really struggle with telling lots of people about us. Nobody cares how any of us describe ourselves to ourselves. And you've all seen the consultancies were very good at putting out those very detailed solution framework slides in the tiny font and going, look at this, it's our amazing view of the world. So that's a really important principle about, well, don't tell anyone how you describe you to you. They do not care. That is only relevant within the boundary of your own company. So actually, marketing your services in language that your client and buyer understands. So when I talk to banks, we talk about, well, how can you actually drive channel shift from branch to mobile? How do you actually deliver more profitable services? In the telco industry, how do you actually increase average ARPU, average revenue per user? So key point there about what, it's back to very simple principles on what is the need you're trying to address and what is the person you're talking to actually care about, because they don't care about you, either an individual or on a macro basis. More is not more. From a B2B perspective, I think there's a little bit of a cultural piece where we want to cram as much information into the marketing comms as possible. And like I certainly do this sometimes myself as well, particularly when I go into some of my favorite topics, when I'm writing POVs. But actually stripping that out and taking the red pen or digital equivalent of the red pen to your beautifully scripted value propositions and points of view, that more is just not more. And I believe strongly in this, actually. I do a lot, as you can imagine. We're trying to hire a lot of people at the moment because, touch wood, we're growing a lot within our digital business. And B2B marketing, in my opinion, is just as interesting or more interesting than B2C. Particularly because of that first bit about the shift in the how marketing is being delivered, about treating B2B customers as consumers, but also the extra bit of that, and that you are B2B or industries are actually going direct to consumers. So I firmly believe that over the next 5 years, the B2B space from a marketing professional perspective is an awesome place to be. But we need to be more conscious of that within our own marketing departments. Obviously, I'm in a B2B industry as well. But also when I speak to CMOs of our client marketing departments, being very clear about the exciting feel that it is at the moment. So I promised that I'd talk about a number of case studies. I'm only going to talk about two. It's one of our clients, ABN AMRO, who are a Dutch bank, for those of you who aren't actually familiar with them. And one of the things that they've done very well is that they realized that they had a big problem across their channel mix. And they wanted to increase their time to market significantly, but without impacting the quality of experience available through their digital channels, specifically mobile. They bought into the principle of mobile first. But without cannibalizing the quality of experience customers were used to from the branch. And how they did that was really tight collaboration between their marketing professionals and workforce and their branch support professionals to actually create fantastic content that was available through the mobile channel. And because of the awesome quality of that content, they found they were, over time, it's an ongoing program, they're able to increase time to market of products and services by 50%, but also with no negative impact on customer satisfaction, which is pretty significant when you're changing from branch to mobile, as any of you working in that space will no doubt be aware of. From a consumer products perspective, one of our clients, and now actually two others, have really bought into this point about going direct to customer and actually the huge business opportunity and potential to completely overhaul their business model from using consumer B2C data from the external market, from across social channels, etc., and POS data within supermarkets, etc., and e-commerce data, and marrying that to enterprise data. And the reason I share this one very briefly is that the way in which they're conceiving of this pivotal role that their global marketing function and also their marketing workforce play as really being the central stakeholder group in shifting how the whole business operates by using customer and consumer insights and then applying that not just to what's the next campaign going to be, how can I push that out to increase sales of Ben & Jerry's through Tesco in Paris, but Tesco doesn't work in Paris, Carrefour. But not just looking at it from what it means for more marketing, but then how is that insight fed through to HR, to supply chain, to research and development. And what you see now is this complete shift in the way in which they're conceiving of the value that marketing brings and the actionable insight they bring, and those kind of deep long-term legacy expertise of marketing in being customer-obsessed, customer-centric, and applying that to operational decisions to treat employees the same as consumers and bring employees into that change agenda. So in summary then, I'd say these few words. The number one, customer is king. I'm not going to go into that any further. I think Kirk has covered that off very well. The need to have that outside in, inside out perspective, contextual view of your customer, single view of your enterprise. From a digital's fundamental impact on how business operates is a fact that from an employee perspective and a behavioral perspective, organizations who have the ability to learn, you'll note on purpose, I'm not saying change. I really get really sick of how change is bandied around as a term. But the ability to learn and adapt and apply well thought out insight to how their businesses need to evolve will be the ones and are being the ones that are most successful. All of us individually and collectively being very comfortable with our own answer to that question, why would anyone work for me? There's a huge point back to my original question when I opened. How do we create relevant, meaningful organizations that customers and employees want to work with? Because when we talk about customer experience and digital customer experience, the other part of that is employee experience. So be comfortable that you can answer that question. If you can't, you've got a problem. How you actually then rebroker relationships between CXO functions and what role you can all play in doing that. How does marketing need to interact differently with the CIO is often talked about, but also the CFO, the COO, given that an awful lot of the delivery mechanism for a lot of these insights and driving true transformation in the company is dependent on the COO's function and the operating model that supports the promise that we in marketing and sales are making externally. How do you future-proof the company and think 2 steps ahead? We believe strongly that you must have a very compelling mission and a really deep understanding of why you're doing something from an emotional and practical and business perspective. But in terms of the route to how you get there, You need to gear your company that you're willing to iterate that and change it based on insights and lessons learned, some good, some really tough, from the external market. Failure has been spoken about a lot. It's great. Let's get all more comfortable with it. Personally, I struggle with it. I'm very much an A-type personality, so I struggle with failure rocks, but we're all trying to change our behavior in the digital enterprise. Don't avoid the quants. We need to, from a marketing perspective, get much more comfortable with talking in quantitative terms, as opposed to just only the qualitative. The qualitative and creative can't go out of the conversation. It's that bit that wins hearts and minds. But from a quantitative perspective, to secure your budgets and to be comfortable about how you're going to actually say, yes, I delivered a hell of a lot, this amount of ROMI over this quarter and consecutively over these years, you need to be comfortable with quants. And lastly, my favorite, getting to a point where you can feel deeply that it's all invented. Has anybody ever heard of a gentleman called Benjamin Zander? Well, if you ever get a chance to hear him speak, he's in his 80s, he's the maestro of the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra. He's written a book called The Art of Possibility, and it's just fantastic, so read it. But one of the things that he talks about, which I'd love to claim as my own, but sadly not sufficiently creative to have done so, is that someone at some point in time has created what we believe is the reality, or you or me, we believe is the reality. So actually, once you accept that as a principle, step back from it and go, it's all invented. So be authentic and go and try new things, and who knows what will happen. So thank you very much for your attention, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you so much indeed. No, it's fine. Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Maggie. I mean, I've got to admit, I don't know if anyone's following anything on social media at the moment, but there's a nice little discussion going on about fluffy and weak, and that's what the CFO thinks of you. So feel free to join that discussion. Just use the hashtag B2B Google. So Maggie just gave us a great overview there of looking across multiple companies and some real thought leadership in what's happening out there in the market. And what really needs to happen to be truly transforming your business digitally.